So I think if you're in Bangalore, you cannot escape this idea of, this ecosystem of startups, right? So you're constantly either meeting some or hearing of some or associated with some almost every day. So that it's not been a new thing for me in terms of startups. But I did not have a primary first-hand association with any till about 2 to 3 years ago, when I decided to actually, quite out of curiosity, try to understand what is the landscape for someone who probably is not directly connected to any of the founders or investors, larger investors. Is there a space for retail investors to search and discover and sort of make up your own mind on what you want to do, compared to some ready-made products that are available in which you invest and then those products invest in sort of startups? So that was really my curiosity. I did speak to a few people who had already done that, which gave me a little bit more sort of information on how to go about doing that. There were some platforms available for me to sort of dabble around and explore. So really a confluence of all of these things is what got me into the space some 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a very warm welcome to you on this episode of Invest with Dexter. My name is Ankit, and I'm a senior associate at Dexter Ventures. At Dexter Ventures, we've been investing in startups at early stage, primarily seed and pre-seed stages. In our 3-year investment journey, we have had the opportunity to partner with 30 plus companies across the spectrum of consumer tech businesses across healthcare, finance, B2B, SaaS, AI, and deep tech. As we move from a syndicate model to very soon we'll be launching our fund, I thought of taking this initiative to speak with a few of our angels who would be sharing this story. In my journey with Dexter, I've had a chance to speak with hundreds of investors and prospects who, started investing with Dexter, invested so far across the companies. These investors come from India, globally, from very different walks of life, including corporates, HNIs, family offices, CXOs, and founders at scaled up startups. With Invest with Dexter, I'd like to take this initiative to speak with a few of them to unfold their startup journey, the how, the what, and the whatnot of it. While a decade back, startup investing was just privy to the big boys club, come at the last 5 years, India has witnessed a rise of over 20,000 angels. While we stand third among the world's number of startups, the number of angels have still remained limited, right? But the journey of these 20,000 angels have been largely to have a slice of India's success story. Without further ado, let's meet our angel for today, Miss Mala Subramanian. Hi, Mala. How are you doing?
Hi, Ankit. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Great. Mala, for the benefit of our investors, why don't we start off with introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi. So I'm actually almost 35 years in various sectors, various countries, a professional, largely in finance, but also systems and strategy. The first 20 odd years were in corporate, in banking, in FMCG, and the last 10 to 11 years was in development. So really seen the span of issues, as well as challenges and opportunities that are there, especially in the world as it is unfolding now. Very interested in the idea of scale, and especially understanding the intersect of technology with some very core problems that then can enable scale to happen seamlessly with less friction. So that's really been my interest and my area of work also in the last 5 years. Right now I'm looking at doing a bunch of things. Of course, angel investing being one of the things that's on my portfolio.
Great. Thank you, Mala. Thank you so much for putting perspective. And this has clearly reflected on so many occasions where we've spoken on multiple opportunities which we've evaluated together. I'll take a step back to understand from you for the benefit of of our viewers, Mala, what really got you into angel investing? How did you discover about startups and how has your journey been so far?
Yeah. So I think if you're in Bangalore, you cannot escape this idea of, this ecosystem of startups, right? So you're constantly either meeting some or hearing of some or associated with some almost every day. So that it's not been a new sort of thing for me in terms of startups. But I did not have a primary first-hand association with any till about 2 to 3 years ago, when I decided to actually, quite out of curiosity, try to understand what is the landscape for someone who probably is not directly connected to any of the founders or investors, larger investors. Is there a space for retail investors to search and discover? And sort of make up your own mind on what you want to do, compared to some ready-made products that are available in which you invest, and then those products invest in sort of startups. So that was really my curiosity. I did speak to a few people who had already done that, which gave me a little bit more sort of information on how to go about doing that. There were some platforms available for me to sort of dabble around and explore. So really a confluence of all of these things is what got me into the space some 2.5 years ago, if you will.
Got it. And if I may ask, how many investments have you done so far?
I think over the 2 years, 2+ years, around 20.
Got it. And what have been your favorite sectors?
So I started off with EdTech. I said I understood that, I was familiar with that. So I started with that. I entered through that. But then very quickly realized that, EdTech itself had many nuances. And so from there, sort of extricated the tech out of it and said, probably tech is what I'm interested in. Tech that I understand. There's a lot of tech that I don't understand, and I don't invest in that because I'm not able to make sense of whether that's the right thing or wrong thing. So tech that I understand is something that then became a theme for me. And of course, connecting with the actual problem, intuitively appealing to me as something that's worth solving, and the potential for scale. So these are the things that I look for. So agnostic sector wise, but really tech as a backbone is something that I look for. And tech that I understand is what I look for.
But so largely to summarize, it would be tech, it has to be tech enabled, if not tech focused, and it has to be a sector of your understanding rather than just being, it could be a tech enabled business, but has to also be some sector which has been to your liking.
Correct. With the problem, where the problem is something that speaks to me, and the solution is a scalable solution that I can see. So yeah, I mean, some of the new age things, I'm not very familiar with those, though it's highly tech enabled. So I probably wouldn't do that firsthand. I'd probably depend on somebody else to deal with that for me.
Got it. And during your introduction, you mentioned about not having direct access to founders and investors, the larger investors for that matter, and you having to discover these platforms and other things. So how has your deal sourcing been, and how do you typically look at various opportunities from that angle?
Yeah. So I think in terms of quantity of deals, I'd say not too bad, right? But time will tell in terms of quality. I'm hopeful that the quality is there. But where I still believe, where I went in a bit naive is, I felt like the platform, because it posits itself as a retail platform, and I'm not naming any, but really any platform that's available, would create or fill in the gaps of information asymmetry that really exists, right? That's the role of the platform, trying to get to the retail investor and closing some of those gaps. I'm not seeing that role is being performed very well, probably for the right reasons, but it's not something that I'm seeing has been solved for. So there's still that issue of gaps in information, right? Even after you discover and after you invest, I don't believe that retail investors get the kind of information that probably they should. So one is not really able to assess even what's going on for the most part, unless you have some access to information that's not readily available on the platform. So yeah, I would say quantity wise good, quality wise, I'm still making up my mind whether these platforms are doing the job or not.
Got it. So from what I could gauge out of this, and we come to it when we talk about Dexter as well, that post deal diligence and post deal communication is what something is other points where you would like a lot more attention from the investment leads or the investment manager or the fund manager for that matter, who are
Absolutely.
handling your funds.
Absolutely. I do not look at these, or maybe I'm wrong and I need to know whether I'm wrong, is
Mhm.
I don't look at these as administrative pass-through, platform supporters, right? I look at them as value add
Mhm.
supporters to
Mhm.
actually help retail investors with their journey and figure out
Mhm.
whether the investment is making sense or not.
Mhm.
Right now, a lot of it is a black box. I'm guessing some of them may actually be all right, but I don't know.
Right. Right. So one thing has been, critically, uh, assigned or maybe come to the forefront is communication to the core, right?
Yeah.
So as you invest in startups, you would also have seen multiple sources, multiple deals coming through, the amount of information being conveyed.
Yeah.
And post deals, what becomes important is whoever the fund manager or the deal manager or your platform or whichever avenue you've
Yes.
invested from, right? They continue to convey the MISs, the reports, the goods and the bads about the company, even if it's a
Yes.
face the roadblock, right? We're all
Yes.
well aware of the incumbent
Yes. Of course.
where you invest in when you invest in startups and the high mortality rate, right?
Correct.
What it comes what comes of utmost importance or quintessential is the investor being informed very well about every opportunity, every investment he or she has made, and how it
Yeah.
is progressing, whether on the headwinds or the tailwinds, whatever the path,
Absolutely.
right?
Bang on. Bang on.
Uh, Great. So, coming on to, since you mentioned about 20 investments so far, if you could name maybe three or four of your, things which you have been very confident about and you're seeing very good growth out there, or some bad stories as well. You may choose not to name the companies. You may speak
Yeah.
about, a line or two about these companies.
I would probably not name them,
Absolutely.
in all fairness, because the jury is still out on all of them actually.
Absolutely. Yes.
But yeah, I can see that some of the edtech, the way it started off, if you didn't pivot or didn't actually catch what is and what is an issue after you start executing, then likely that those investments probably are not going to do very well. So
Hmm.
I'm already seeing that in the portfolio. Some of the platform-like investments, logistics, investments, probably the time is right, especially post-COVID, for many of those to take off. So I probably am seeing a lot of tailwinds there. So yeah, it's more or less, I would say, on the hopeful side, as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, it's we don't have any success stories, I wish, but no, not yet. But I would say that a lot of them are looking pretty hopeful in terms of potential. May not be mouth-watering as such, but certainly good,
Hmm.
I would say.
Okay. And a very critical, quintessential, most important question which also needs to be highlighted to every investor, every angel investor, or a prospective angel who's been sitting and looking to invest. What is your thoughts on exit in terms of the horizon? People want
Right.
to enter, people see valuation jumps, people see a lot of humdrum about it, but
Yeah.
where do you see your exit happening?
I think you mean where or when. So, I mean,
When?
obviously, your timeline has to be, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, but really at least 5 to 7 years should be a minimum horizon, I would imagine, for any sort of meaningful exit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of how, I think the scenario is also changing for a lot of that, right? Again, I'm also building my understanding. I also went in naive thinking there's going to be pre-A and then A and B and C and D, and then you end up with IPO. I'm guessing all of that for a retail investor is probably not going to happen, right? You're probably going to get off along the way somewhere. When there is enough sail in the winds or wind in the sails or whatever, which is okay, right? I mean, that's all right. I think one has to look at what your money can get back. So I am not really saying that the destination is IPO or the destination is what you can control. I'm not being idealistic about that. It's a very practical thing is you probably have not much control on as a very small investor as to when you can get out, right? As long as the overall the organization is moving well, the sector is moving well, and there's enough demand, probably you'll get what you came in here for on an average in 5 to 7 years. That I would say that is my horizon.
Completely echo your point, Mala. We have to stay invested and remain there for 5 to 7 years to see meaningful exits. So, for example, you've been investing with us too. We come in at the fat start of the value chain, or the investing value chain for that matter, investing at seed and pre-seed stages. So typically a Series B or a C exit or a larger M&A at that stage, right, is where we make the maximum returns out of it, where we get our secondary exits, right? So that's
Correct.
typically the horizon of that 5-year period, which we say that is where you will ideally see your greater returns. And of course, in that journey, you will always see mortality of some startups, but that's a part of the game, right? It's always about returns on the portfolio. It's always about diversifying yourself. It's always about building a portfolio, doubling down on your winners, and seeing
Correct.
the good ones making you the returns overall at a portfolio level, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree.
Great. So, Mala, at this juncture, I would like to take a step for you to help us understand. You've been with Dexter for some time now, you've invested with us. How has your experience been with us? We've spoken on opportunities, you've seen our opportunities, the way we've invested, the way we've grown. You've been a close watcher
Yeah.
for that, right? Help us understand where you've seen us do good, where you've seen us not do that great. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think fortunate enough to be discovered by you, if you will, right? You actually, I remember wrote to me or reached out to me some 18 months ago. And I wasn't really sure who Dexter was at that point, right? I was also new, and I thought, maybe I could just handle doing the stuff I was doing via various platforms.
Yes.
But to be honest, I'm very, very, very happy that I took the decision to try you out, right? And as you know, we've made a few investments through you. I think what I find it's very reassuring, the kind of deals that come through you. I can almost not, there's no need to second guess the information there. The format is clear, the risks are called out. And I feel like if I were to bet, I'd rather bet, as you said, it is a chance, it is a game of, there's a high mortality, right? So if I have to bet on some things that work well, I would rather do it through a vehicle like Dexter, right? Which is able to front end a lot of that and at least create the asymmetry, remove the asymmetry on information. For me, and almost like working on behalf of me kind of thing, which is very, very confidence building. So I feel like that firsthand I've seen. I'm very happy, and I would think that that's really the value add that you provide and should really be a very good selling point, or a value sort of enhancing point for you, for other people who are looking at investing.
Great. Thank you so much, Mala. And as I was telling you that, right, so far after syndication is now where we are stepping into our next story of, creating a fund and moving forward with that. Because as I was rightly telling you, right, building a portfolio is the most important thing. And that's what we've been, as you said, retail investors have deal access now from platforms, but information asymmetry is there. You get a hang of few deals, you want to take a bet on few, you don't want to take a bet on few. And what happens ultimately is you bet on a few which become great winners, you bet on a few which you lose out. But as you build a portfolio is where you can always have a very diversified kind of exposure. So yeah, that's what we've been doing next, as I was telling you about. Great, you've shared a lot of perspectives with us. Thank you so much. The next question, before we move to the most interesting segment, before calling out closures, is help us, for the benefit of our viewers, as I was telling you, that my initiative is to promote angel investing and bring forth a lot more angel investors to the front, to the fore, and get them to have exposure to this asset class. What would you suggest to first time angel investors or those who are fence sitting on the fence, wanting to invest, have little avenues or little knowledge around it, or maybe double minded around the same? What is your advice, maybe 2 cents, 3 cents on this piece as to how they should look at it and what should be their expectation?
Yeah, I mean, I came in rather late, right? If you look at a sort of journey, but then again, of course, the ecosystem was not ready before that and all of that. But there are much younger people now who are looking at angel investing, and more power to them. But if you ask me what is my advice, I think I would say, it's okay if you take time. That is my advice, right? It has to, at a gut level, it has to make sense, right? So, and I believe if you do enough research and if you start sort of small, and although it looks overwhelming in terms of all the stuff that's available or not available, and you want to make sense of it, I feel like at some point it will start speaking to you in terms of, okay, this is the right thing to do, and sort of you take that call to invest. If you can remove, the physical access to it, right? That's available now if you want, right? That's not, I think, anymore a problem. All you need to do is click on a platform. But if you remove that hurdle, it's how do you part with a check, right? How do you make that decision? I would say it's okay to take time. It's okay to start small. It's okay to absolutely go with something you understand very, very well. It's okay to be led by a founder that you know, or you know of, or a sector that you know very, very well, and sort of then play it from there, right? I'm not sure one needs to be in a hurry to build this portfolio, is what I think. Is what I would say, right? So, I mean,
I guess
in
it's also one more thing being critical as to choosing your right fund manager,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's where, of course, you're betting on the horse
yeah.
at all times when you're betting on the startup, right? You're always betting on the founder.
Right.
But at the same time, your fund manager plays a very critical role, right?
Agreed. Absolutely agree. So I'm saying if you remove, so I'm assuming that that the platforms are all available to you. It's transparent that what the platforms can give you. The fund managers are there. You know who they are and you can go to them. I'm assuming all of that is taken for granted. Post that, if you're still hesitating, then I would say that it's okay. That is what I meant.
So,
But if you're saying, is it a choice between no one to mediate, and you going direct, I would say better to go with somewhere where there is mediation.
yeah,
I would certainly agree with that. Benefit of hindsight, I would say that's important.
got it. So, yeah, Mala, thank you so much for putting so many perspectives. I'll move on to, before we call the closure, I'll take your permission to do some rapid fire with you. Right? Neither do we have Karan nor we have coffee. And the hamper is something I think I can give you once we make great returns on your portfolio.
Thank you. I look forward. That's the one after.
So, yeah, so we'll start with some rapid fire. Maybe begin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So quickly to start, three things you look at when you invest.
I think founder for me important. And I feel like I look for, when you ask me the question, I'm thinking now, I probably look for two founders, not
Mm-hmm.
too many, but at least two
Mm-hmm.
is a good number, because I think you need two people at the top,
Okay.
especially when you're doing something very new. So that's very important for me. Of course, the problem in the market needs to be something that I completely get intuitively. So it's a very personal thing, but I feel like finally it's the founder.
Mm-hmm. So team and TAM, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
problem has to be something you can associate with.
Yes.
Three things.
Yes.
Got it. Three things which are absolutely red flag for you.
So red flag in the sense, something I wouldn't really enter is, of course, regulatory fuzziness. And of course, one doesn't really know what can get fuzzy, even if it's clear today. But something that is not very clear on the regulatory side, I would not touch. Something that I don't understand, even though it's trending and it's the hottest thing going, I probably won't go near it until I understand it. And if I don't, I will not. And if it's too good to be true stuff, right? 100x in 2 years, 3 years, all of this stuff, state of the bad positive, all of that stuff, I don't know. Even if I feel like they're right, I probably would be very wary. So yeah, that's me. So I think it's again very personal.
Got it. Three sectors you would want to take a bet on.
I think Bharat would be a good bet. So tier 2, tier 3, anything geography wise.
Mm-hmm.
Women as consumers, I feel like I don't know if that's often talked about as a cohort, but I feel like that's going to be a big sort of next thing, because really the GDP growth and the sort of story narrative for India is going to shift to that, if it's not already shifting. So women will have both the purchasing power and the power to drive the narrative around consumption. So I think that is important. And of course, tech. So that is what I think at this point.
Bringing on to the second phase of our rapid fire, this or that. Okay. Founders with strong institutional background or founders with strong operating experience in the domain?
I think execution is king. I've seen that. So I would say operating experience, very, very important.
Okay. Large market with several VC funded players or growing market with lesser competition, what I would call as a white space or a gray space for that matter?
I would say I don't know. I mean, I'd say really depending on the context. I've done both, right?
Okay.
But the gray space one is probably more sort of quantitatively that becomes much more available, I think, for angels.
Okay. Three options for the next one: startup which is profitable from day one, startup with profitability in the foreseeable future, say about 2 years, or hyper growth focused startups in the near term and long term profitability vision, maybe 5 years down the line.
So I've seen the third kind. I have not seen the first kind, but I would prefer the second kind.
Okay. Pre-seed seed startup at a lucrative valuation or a startup which has achieved its product market fit at a premium valuation.
I would imagine pre-seed, where I have the ability to take a call. I again don't know of the other kind, right? And that's probably more for institutional guys to chase. I'm not even sure that's a fit for me. I'm not even sure I'll get an opportunity to access those, honestly. So I
Okay.
would say pre-seed.
Got it. With that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you so much, Mala. You've put in a lot of perspective. I think with your interview and your podcast going live in a few days from today, or in a few hours, maybe actually, I expect two things: investors in general, or people in general, learning from your experience, and especially women would come to the forefront. We have seen women become active as founders, co-founders across the startup ecosystem. May not be to the level we would expect, but the change is happening largely. I expect with your interview, we see a lot of women angels also coming to the forefront.
Awesome. I was inspired by a woman angel who's a friend of mine. So I hope many more come to the fore. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mala. Thank you so much for taking time today. Cheers. Best wishes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.